I always said, I'm here for you. But that one day, I was too late. I always told him, I'm here for you. Every single time he felt low, every time things got heavy at home, I made sure he knew he wasn't alone. I wasn't his real mom, but I promised myself that wouldn't matter. I came into his life when he was still figuring himself out. At first, he avoided me, barely spoke a word, just nodded and went to his room. I understood. I gave him time. Slowly, that wall started to come down. He'd leave notes on the fridge. I'd leave snacks outside his door. He started calling me Ronnie Auntie, instead of just her. And eventually he began to open up. Little things at first, school stuff, music he liked, jokes he thought were funny. And then deeper things. About his dad. About how he missed his mom. About how some nights, he couldn't sleep because of the thoughts in his head. I always listened. I didn't try to fix everything. I just reminded him, I'm here, no matter what. And I meant it. But then came that one day. The day I got caught up. With errands. With phone calls. With things that seemed urgent at the time. I noticed his door was closed. I assumed he was just tired. I told myself I'd check in on him after dinner. But dinner came and went. I knocked. No answer. The house felt different. Quieter. Too quiet. I tried the door. Locked. My heart dropped. And in that moment, all I could think about was every time I'd said, I'm here for you. And how, just once, I wasn't. What happened next? I still can't forget. And maybe I never will. Let me tell you what I found behind that door. My hands were shaking as I stood outside his room. I called his name, once, twice, no reply. Something about that silence felt wrong. Not the kind where someone's just sleeping, but the kind that makes your skin crawl. I rushed to the kitchen and grabbed the spare key from the top drawer. My mind kept whispering things I didn't want to hear. He's fine. You're overthinking. Maybe he's just asleep. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I unlocked the door slowly. The room was dark, curtains drawn, air heavy. His phone was lying on the floor, screen lit up with unread messages. My voice cracked as I said his name again. I stepped in. The bed was untouched. My eyes scanned the room, heart pounding louder than my footsteps. He wasn't there. The window was open slightly, just enough to let the breeze move the curtains. I checked the bathroom. Empty. Closet. Nothing. My head was spinning. It wasn't like him to just leave without saying anything, especially not now, after everything we'd talked about. After everything he'd shared with me. I looked back at his desk. His journal was sitting there. He never let anyone touch it. Ever. It was always tucked away, hidden under books or clothes. But today it was just there, waiting. I shouldn't have opened it. I know that. But something told me I had to. The first few pages were old entries, typical teenage stuff. School, friends, dreams. Then the tone changed. He had started writing things he hadn't said out loud. Things about feeling unwanted. About not fitting in. About missing his mom more than he could handle. About how hard it was to pretend he was okay. And then I reached the last page he wrote. The words were simple. I thought she'd always be there. That's it. No date. No explanation. Just that line. It felt like the walls were closing in. I had no idea where he'd gone. No idea if he was safe. And no idea what I had missed in the moments I looked away. All I knew was he needed me. And this time, I might have been too late. But something in that room didn't sit right with me. Something was off. Like a piece of the puzzle was missing. And I was about to find out what it was. I stood in the middle of his room, holding that one sentence like it was a clue and a warning all at once. I thought she'd always be there. I kept hearing it in my head, over and over. I tried to convince myself it didn't mean what I feared it did. Maybe he just went to a friend's place. Maybe he needed space. But the more I looked around, the less that made sense. His shoes were still by the door. His wallet, even his headphones, everything he usually took with him, untouched. I checked his phone again. Missed calls. Messages. The most recent one was from a boy named Ariv, a classmate I'd only heard about once. I hesitated, then opened it. You okay, bro? Heard about what happened in class today. My stomach twisted. What happened in class? I grabbed my phone and called the school. They were closed. No one answered. So I called my husband, his dad. He was at work, barely heard my voice through the noise. He's probably just mad about something, he said. You worry too much. I wanted to scream. No, this wasn't normal. Something had happened, and I was the only one seeing it. Then I remembered the last time we talked, just 2 nights ago. He told me he didn't like how some boys in his class treated him, that they made comments about his broken family, that sometimes even teachers looked at him differently. He said he was tired of pretending everything was okay. And I had told him the same thing I always did. I'm here for you. But was I? I called Ariv. He didn't answer the first time. I tried again, and this time he picked up. His voice was low, like he didn't want anyone to hear him. Asked him if he'd seen my stepson. He was silent for a second. Then he said, I don't think I'm supposed to say anything, but he was really upset after class today. He told me he didn't want to go home. My heart sank. There was more to this. Something had pushed him over the edge. And now he was out there, alone, feeling like no one saw him, like no one cared. I had to find him, but I had no idea where to start, and I was running out of time. I didn't even bother changing shoes. I grabbed my keys and ran out the door. The sun had already set, and the streets were slowly going quiet. Every corner I turned felt heavier. I kept thinking, where would he go? What place made him feel safe? I called his phone again. Still no answer. I messaged him. Please just let me know you're okay. I'm here. Always. That word, always, kept haunting me. I drove to the park near our house. It was one of the few places he actually liked. He once told me it was the only place he didn't feel watched, didn't feel judged. I parked and walked quickly across the path, checking every bench, every swing. Nothing. A couple of teenagers were sitting by the fence, headphones in, faces lit up by their phones. I showed them his picture. They shook their heads. I got back in the car and just sat there for a minute, trying to breathe. My heart was racing, and my thoughts were going everywhere. What if he wasn't just upset? What if something happened to him? I thought about all the signs I might have missed. The way he'd started staying in his room more. How he'd stopped listening to music. How he didn't smile when I made his favorite noodles last week. And still, I told myself it was just teenage stuff. I didn't push. I didn't ask. I called Ariv again. This time I didn't ask, I begged. Please, I said. I need to know where he might be. There was a pause. Then Ariv said something I didn't expect. He talked about an old building near the bus depot. Said he goes there sometimes when things get too much. He told me not to tell anyone. His voice cracked. But I'm scared too. The bus depot. It was nearly abandoned at night. That side of town was barely lit, half the buildings empty. I started driving before he even finished the sentence. Every red light felt like it was mocking me. By the time I reached the depot, my hands were sweating and my chest felt like it was about to cave in. The air was cold, quiet, too quiet. I parked and walked toward the building. It was fenced off, but the side gate was broken. I pushed it open slowly. The place smelled of rust and dust, the kind of silence that holds secrets. My footsteps echoed against the metal floor. I called his name. No answer. Just my voice bouncing back at me. Then I saw something in the corner. A school bag. His bag. It was sitting right there, against the wall, like he'd placed it down carefully. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't see anyone. But I knew he was close. Somewhere. I stepped deeper into the shadows of that building, my heart now pounding so loud I could barely think. And that's when I heard it. A sound. Faint. Like someone breathing. Or trying to. I froze. That sound, it wasn't just in my head. It was real. A soft, strained breath, coming from the far end of the room. I moved slowly, stepping over broken tiles and scattered trash. The old building creaked around me, every sound amplified in the silence. I called his name again, quieter this time, afraid of what I might find. The closer I got, the clearer the sound became. Not just breathing, muffled movement. Someone was definitely there. I turned the corner, heart thudding in my ears, and saw a figure crouched behind a pile of wooden boards. It was him. His head was down, arms wrapped around his knees. He didn't even look up when I called him again. I rushed to him, dropped to my knees, and placed a hand on his shoulder. His body flinched, not from cold, but fear. That's when I realized he wasn't alone. Before I could say anything, I saw another figure just a few feet behind him.
A boy.
Maybe a little older. Dirty clothes.
Pale face.
He looked terrified, like he didn't know whether to run or hide. And then I saw it. My stepson was holding his jacket tightly around the other boy, shielding him. He looked up at me, eyes filled with something I hadn't seen before, anger, fear, and something deeper.
Guilt.
I didn't know what else to do, he said, voice shaking. He didn't have anywhere to go. I stared at them both, completely lost. Who is he? I asked gently. He swallowed hard. His name is Kabir. He ran away a week ago. From his foster home. They weren't good to him.
I didn't know what to say.
All this time, while I was worrying about my son being alone, he was worrying about someone else being even more alone. He wasn't trying to disappear. He was trying to protect. But this changed everything.
2 boys now.
One missing from his foster home. The other hiding it. And me, standing there, realizing how little I really knew about what he was going through. He asked me not to tell anyone. My stepson said, voice cracking. He said if they found him, they'd send him back. And I believed him. I couldn't let that happen. I thought I could fix it somehow. The weight of his words hit me like a wave. He hadn't run away from me. He'd run to someone who needed him. But now we were in deeper trouble. If someone found out, it could get serious. The law, the school, even his father, none of them would understand. And worse, if Kabir really had run from an abusive foster home, someone might already be looking for him. Or worse, trying to cover it up. The stakes were no longer just emotional, they were real, legal, dangerous. And we were standing in the middle of it, with no idea what would happen next. I looked at both of them, my stepson and Kabir, curled up in the corner of that cold, broken building, trying to protect each other from a world that had already failed them too many times. I knew I couldn't just walk away from this. My stepson's eyes begged me not to call anyone, not yet. Please, he whispered. Just help me help him. I nodded slowly. We'll figure this out. But we can't stay here. He hesitated, then helped Kabir stand. The boy was weak, clearly hadn't eaten in days. I wrapped my shawl around him and led them both to the car. My mind was racing. If I called the police right away, Kabir might be taken back to wherever he came from. But if I waited too long, we could all get in trouble. I had to think carefully. Back home, I gave Kabir some warm food and called a friend of mine who worked with child protection services, not the system, but an independent advocate. Someone I trusted. I explained everything, slowly, carefully, leaving nothing out. She promised to come first thing in the morning and that she'd handle it quietly, making sure Kabir wouldn't be sent back to a dangerous place. That night, as my stepson lay on the couch beside Kabir, he looked at me and whispered, I thought I messed everything up. I thought you'd be angry. I sat next to him and held his hand. You didn't mess anything up, I said. You were brave. You were more there for him than I was for you.
For the first time in weeks, he smiled.
I thought that was it, that we were finally okay. But then, the next morning, just before my friend arrived, there was a knock at the door. It wasn't her. It was a man. Sharp eyes. Clean coat. Holding a badge. He looked at me and said, We have reason to believe you're harboring a missing person. And you're not the only one we're investigating. And just like that, everything changed again. I stood frozen at the door, heart pounding, eyes locked with the man holding the badge. My stepson appeared behind me, wide-eyed, Kabir peeking from the hallway. I didn't try to hide anything. I stepped aside and let the officer in. He didn't barge in or raise his voice. He just asked to speak with Kabir. My voice cracked as I said, He's scared. Please don't make this worse for him. To my surprise, the officer's tone softened. He knelt beside Kabir and said, "We're not here to hurt you. We just need to know you're safe." That moment felt like a shift. Kabir slowly nodded. My stepson stood close, not letting go of his hand. I explained everything. How Kabir showed up, how my stepson kept him safe, how I contacted someone from child services. The officer listened, nodded, and then made a call. A short while later, my friend from the child advocacy group arrived. She had already pulled some strings, and it turned out that Kabir's case had been flagged before. His foster home was under review, and this wasn't the first time a child had run away from there. Kabir didn't have to go back. With the help of the advocate, a safe transitional home was arranged, a place where Kabir would be looked after properly. Before he left, he hugged my stepson tightly and whispered something only he could hear. My stepson didn't say what it was, but I saw the way his shoulders relaxed, like something heavy had finally lifted. That night, I sat with him on the balcony, the air quiet but full of things unspoken. He looked at me and said, "You still mad at me?" I smiled and shook my head.
No.
You didn't just help someone. You became someone I'm proud of. He leaned his head on my shoulder and whispered, "I'm glad you came that night. I don't know what I would have done if you didn't." I didn't reply. I just held him closer. Because sometimes love doesn't look perfect. Sometimes it's messy, complicated, and full of mistakes. But when it's real, it shows up, even late, and makes things right. And in the end, that's what truly matters. Being there, even when it's hard, even when you're scared. Being there before it's too late.